your name to mine. One day in May, you'll come and say, happy is the bride, the sun shines on today. What a
Why did we fight World War II? Was it to keep Nazi Germany from taking over Europe and then the world? Is that it? Now, if you read the fascist doctrine, it says something like everything for the state, everything to the state, nothing against the state, and every individual is subservient to the state. You're nothing but a cell in the state. The state comes first. And the funny thing about that is that it's similar or about the same as the communist doctrine. That's what it is, socialism. Everything is for the state. Everything else is subservient to the state. For example, the recent cases of Charlie Gard and Alfie Evans, who had money and the means to let the children leave England and either go to Italy or America to get treatment. Italy was going to give free treatment. And in the case of Charlie Gard, his parents raised enough money to send him to America and get this experimental treatment that says that it has actually helped children. But the courts in England, which has a socialist medical system, said, no, you can't let your child leave because the child will suffer. They feel the child will suffer more on the trip than dying, than actually taking life support off and letting the child die. And they ruled this as well in the case of Alfie Evans. And then the EU, the parents appealed to the EU, and the EU agreed. The child cannot leave the state. So the court that oversees all the other courts in Europe is the EU. See, they are the state. And Brexit, they're trying to break away from it, but they won't allow them to break away from it. You see, once you've got a regime like that has taken over, oh, that's right. Let's get back to fascism. Now, why in God's name did we even get into the war? Why did all those men go over and get blown to bits on D-Day? And how many millions of people died? They claimed there was 9 million Jews died alone during the Holocaust. Why did all these people even die? What was this all for? And they say that on the beaches of Normandy and all, you can go over there and see all the white crosses of all the men that died when we stormed the Normandy beach. To push back Hitler and this Nazi regime, this mentality of being subservient to the state, where there's no individualism, in a world where, it's funny because the world that Obama and Hillary were ushering in was the world where people are saying they want to decide what their gender is. They want that individualism to decide, not have anyone tell them what their particular gender is. So at the same time, you want a socialist system to dictate everything. And I was watching one of the clips that Sargon of Akkad, which his name is Carl, he also does the Thinkery. He said he went to protest against Article 13 to the EU. And that day they were arguing about the length of candle wicks. And if you argue about the length of candle wicks, then there's no end to it. The state will decide everything. See, that's what a communist system is. The state decides how much food is produced, how many clothes or how many textiles are produced, how much of everything. That's why, Bernie Sanders goes crazy over the deodorants, because there should only be one deodorant. And then the people decide what deodorant and how it works and what it looks like in the packaging and how many are made. Everything is controlled. There is no individualism. And in a world where people want sexual freedom, and the Democrats used to be for free speech, their right to protest, to say anything they wanted to sleep with anyone they wanted to. And women, the rights for women, somehow now that's totally dissolved. Women are kind of being silenced now. What was the point of fighting World War II? What was the point of pushing fascism out, yet having it take over 46 years after we supposedly won World War II? The EU stepped in and took over. The EU runs on about $85 million a day. It's a huge amount. It's an unelected body of dictators. It's exactly what it is. I've spoken about this before many times in many of my videos. But on the reflection of it being Memorial Day, to remember those that went and stormed the beaches and those that died in World War II and all our wars, what was the point if we have globalism, the idea of globalism taking over the whole world? And with the TPP, that's exactly what would have happened. Corporations would have, if you were a privately held company in America, when the TPP took over, when big worldwide corporations would have their say and take you over. But when did this start? Why did America turn to socialism? Why did America accept fascism? Why did Europe accept fascism? Well, it did start with FDR. FDR let the Depression go on a lot longer than it should have. And what that did was people lost their faith in capitalism, and they had to depend on the state. So he put out Social Security. You pay into it, and then you get out of it. If you don't make much money, then you won't get much money at the end. That's the way it goes. But it's funny, we have a welfare state now, and which didn't exist when the immigrants came over through Ellis Island. There was no handouts, and you had to have a job waiting for you, and you had to have a home, somebody to sponsor you. And you couldn't be sick, otherwise you were sent back or detained there. There was no welfare state. Now there is a welfare state, and the welfare state for the people who are flooding the borders, there is no end. It's not going to run out, but we hear that Social Security, what we pay into, it's going to run out for us, but it will never run out for the welfare state. And who pays for the welfare state? We do. Does that sound fair? No, it doesn't. Well, at that time, the African Americans, descendants of slaves and former slaves, were Republicans, and they became very, very poor. They had a great work ethic, which was beaten out of them later on, but they had a great work ethic, and they were very, very poor, and they needed a job. And then FDR started the New Deal. The New Deal. The state was going to provide your jobs. See, there's the socialist state. And because he was the party in power, reluctantly, these descendants of slaves moved from the Republican Party, which set them free, abolished slavery, to back to the Democrat Party, or to the Democrat Party, which is the party of KKK, Jim Crow, slavery. They were all Democrats. He got them back. And it's no wonder, it's not a shock. He appointed the first open member of the KKK to the Supreme Court. And to get the New Deal passed, they didn't want, you see, the Democrats, the members of the KKK who belonged to our Senate and Congress, wouldn't sign the New Deal unless he did not make lynching in the South illegal. So as a result, 4,000 African Americans were lynched by the KKK. And that's because of the king of the Democrats, who loved social. In fact, he loved fascism. He sent the Brain Trust over to Italy to learn all about fascism, to bring it back here and implement it here. And even Stalin sent, see, Mussolini originally was a revolutionary socialist. Stalin sent a letter to him saying that you've implemented socialism perfectly, exactly how I want to implement it here. Isn't that interesting? Both Stalin and FDR admired this fascism. But you see, Hitler had his own version of fascism, right? The National Socialist Party. National Socialist Party, that's what Nazi stands for in German. German Socialist Party. And since after World War II, because of Hitler, it left a bad taste in everyone's mouth. Fascism. Nobody wanted to accept fascism. So they accepted socialism. They didn't realize it was the same thing. And because we had so many people in this country lost faith in capitalism, and it was basically forced on our throats. We were starved into accepting it by a guy who kept lynching going on in the South and appointed an open member of the KKK to the Supreme Court. And also this Democrat had internment camps in this country for Japanese, Germans, and Italians. They all went to internment camps. And all their possessions, all their money, everything was taken away. They suffered, some starved to death in there. You kind of call it a concentration camp in a way. So FDR was running his own thing over here. And the funny thing about it is just like Lincoln did the same thing. Woodrow Wilson, who's a Democrat, he did the same thing. And FDR did this too. You see, they went after journalists and they jailed them. He shut down newspapers. They did all this stuff. JFK did, and then Obama did. In fact, he jailed more journalists, Obama, than all the presidents combined. And Trump hasn't gone after one. He might say fake news, which is true, but he hasn't gone after one. Not one. Obama was the top. So this FDR really sounds very fascistic to do that to journalism. So the journalists couldn't investigate and report on it, because if they did, he would jail them. See, that's the party you belong to. I'm speaking to the Democrat socialists. That's the party you want. You see, it's really fascistic. And in fact, because we have all these riots, people trying to speak on campus, and then you have Antifa, which are anti-fascists, burn down the campus and beat people up and silence people. That's fascistic. And you really need to learn about the brown shirts and the black shirts and the Red Army and the Red Guard and the Khmer Rouge. You need to learn about all those groups. You see, that's fascism. And what was the point? What was the point of saving the world from Nazi Germany and the Empire of Japan taking over the world? What was the point? We had our own fascistic leader in this country, FDR. And somehow, you see, very interesting thing is happening in Europe. And see, now basically Germany is the head of Europe. And interesting, we thought we won, but we didn't, because the EU took over. And the EU is like the new Nazi party. They have to, see, I think they just went undercover. I don't think they went away. They came back as socialism. And they say that The Death of the Dark Hero is an old poem written in 1842 in Russia about the coming communism. And it says in there that it would be disguised as socialism, using the glamorous word of socialism. And things are happening in America and in Europe. Something similar is happening. Gaddafi said to the world, and he abided by every single sanction and everything America wanted him to do. He was a terrorist, but then he changed. He's a bad guy, dictator, and then he changed. And he actually gave freedom and rights to women. And it was a secular nation. It wasn't a caliphate-run nation. It was secular. And he abided by everything the UN said. But the UN still didn't want him. And see, what he was doing, he was policing the Mediterranean. And he said that if you take me down, Europe will be overrun with migrants. And the migrants that'll be overrun with, well, according to their book, which is a political ideology, and in fact is a totalitarian regime. It's very totalitarian. That's exactly what it is, the political ideology. And their law is very, very strict. So if you are somebody who wants to change your gender, it's not allowed, or even have a tattoo, it's not allowed under that law. You'll be punished in some severe way, and you will go to hell, because you're not supposed to change the body at all. No tattoos, no plastic surgery. Hollywood loves this religion. See, Hollywood could never belong. No one in Hollywood. Notice how they love it, but nobody's converting because they can't. Because you can't have plastic surgery. You can't have gender reassignment surgery. You can't have that under this law. But all the liberals and leftists embrace it. But everyone who belongs, if you adhere to this, you adhere to 7th century Arabia. That's how all these people want to live. And that's the law they want to live under. And so you're mixing these two cultures, people who want to live in progressing, to live in the future. Right now we're in 2019 and we want to live in the future. But these people want to stay in 7th century Arabia under this very totalitarian regime, or this totalitarian type of system, which is the system that the EU is, that you're living under. So no wonder why you're accepting it. Or are you accepting it because it's been spoon-fed a little at a time, and you kind of get beaten down? Now, if these people want to live like that, they can live like that. There are countries, there's 57 majority countries that they can live in. But if you're in Europe, you kind of don't want to live like that. And the two cultures will clash, and that there will be a war. There will be a civil war breaking out, a war of cultures and ideologies. But the EU wants this because they want totalitarianism. That's what they are. They're fascistic. And if you bring in this culture that lives under a totalitarian system, then the people of Europe will be slowly beaten down a little. You remove freedoms a little at a time, one layer at a time, and you soften people up and you beat people down. And then they'll accept openly a fascistic regime. You won't even have to see, people are accepting socialism. They're wanting it. They voted Ocasio-Cortez in. They voted the open communist, the guy naked at some kind of luau saying this land is your land, when he was honeymooning in Soviet Russia, where people were being taken off the street, taken to the gulags, starved to death, bread lines. I mean, people who were literally not enough food of anything. But he was having this luau, but people are accepting him because he's the old grandfather. He seems so, he just wants to give everything to everyone, and he's innocuous, but he's not. Like I said, he's not like innocuous like a balloon on a stick. He's the stick without the balloon, you know, when they cane you. Little do you realize you're accepting this. So what is the point of all these men dying on D-Day and dying to keep Europe free, to keep the world free, where if you want to believe in this particular ideology, then you go ahead. But you see, in a fascistic regime, see, Nazism was a little different than communism. Communism took away religion altogether. In fascism, as long as you put the state first, you could have your religion, but it's God under the state. And I don't think people of this particular religion, political ideology, it's a whole way of life. It dictates your entire way of life. That's why it goes perfectly with fascism. It dictates even the length of a candle wick, you know. So, well, the EU is, I think, in this particular religion, they don't care about the length of a candle wick, which is good one for them, definitely. Even they who want to put their God first won't be able to. So, see, this is a little bait and switch, even for them, and I warn them. This is a bait and switch. They're bringing you into Europe, but the bait and switch is going to happen. And your God, who you want to put first, let everyone who believes in their religion puts their God first. That's my little doggy eating baby Kyrus, if you can hear the crunch crunch. So if you want to put your God first, no matter what religion you believe in, or even if you're Buddhist, you want to put that enlightenment first, you won't be able to do it. The EU is your enemy as well. The EU is not a friend to this 7th century religion, this belief system. Even though it's totalitarian, it's not a friend to them either. And I warn them, it's going to be a bait and switch. That's what Nazism did. As long as it was those who put the concentration camps who put God first, because there was Jews, there was Jehovah's Witnesses, even poor gypsies were put in there, homosexuals were put in there, and Christians, Catholics, anybody who put God first was put into those. You have to put the Nazi party first, and that's the EU, everything for the state. You are subservient to the state. I know this religion, the name of the religion actually doesn't mean peace, it actually means submission. But you believe that it's submission to God, right? This is submission to the state, a godless entity. So it is an enemy to all religions, and it is an enemy to atheists. Anyone who wants freedom, it is an enemy to. Anybody who wants to express their individuality, to become whatever they were destined to be in the fulfillment of their humanity, in every glorious way possible. You know, and I say in prosperity, in abundance, everything you were meant to be. The EU is not your friend. And World War II, I'm not sure if we won World War II, because it came back with socialism, right? You got that socialist system in England, you got that healthcare system that wouldn't allow those parents to save their children, even though they had the money to do it. And countries that would take the children, they said it would be better to take the life if the child starves to death and is unable to breathe and dies like that. That's better than if they suffer a trip over to another country. That's too much, where they could possibly survive and live a full life with these treatments. You see, you got the socialist healthcare. That healthcare decided, you see, the state, the EU, owns your child. Those people couldn't even take their child home to die at home. They had to watch it so you could not take your own child. The state owns you. The state owns your child. That's communism. That's what globalism is. See? So that's why Libya was taken down. And of course, ISIS came in and caged up all the sub-Saharan Africans, the black Africans, and sold them on auction blocks. Even CNN reported this. This is the truth. Got pictures of it off the web, for God's sakes. It's the truth. It's going on today. There is no government. It's totally taken down. They took this down. Notice every secular nation, Iraq was awful though, but this was a secular nation which meant women could go to college and drive cars. You take this nation down, and then the migrants flowed into Europe. And Europe, the EU, offered freedom, free welfare and free housing, similar to what's going on in this country. This is how you take the countries down, and then you usher in this global fashion. You say, oh, socialism is great. No, it's not. No, it's not. And the funny thing is they say, we keep saying minorities, the minorities. But the truth is, everyone south of the border is considered a person of color, right? Everyone outside of Europe is considered people of color, right? There's actually white, if you think it's Western, the Western world or white people aren't the minority, well, in the world, they are the minority. They are the minority. So if you make it a globalist world, that's true. White people instantly become the minority. But it isn't like you're going to be on top, no matter what your melanin content is or where because you're subservient to the state. Your individualism as a person of color or a person of this particular religion or this particular gender or this particular sexual orientation, I could go on and on and on. There's no more individualism. So you think, well, if we take down all these countries and then whites become the minority, then we'll have a better standing. No, because it will be globalists. Globalism is socialism, is fascism. That's what you've got. The Nazis never really left. You are subservient to the state. You are a cell in the state. You are not an individual. You are not unique. You die for the state. And socialism only brings in poverty. There's the dictator at the top, and there's the people at the bottom who suffer and die, and starve. But we're all equal. So it isn't like, oh, okay, we'll let everything fall, and then the white people realize that they're the minority, and it would be great for all of us. No. I suggest you learning about fascism, the fascistic manifesto, and you learn more about the EU and what they're doing, and you find that the socialism that's being brought in is the fascism that you fear, because socialism is fascism. Socialism is just a glamorous word that you think is going to give everyone money, a place to live, free health care, even though there aren't enough doctors or hospitals to cover everyone. It's true. Nobody's going to get free health care. It's not going to happen. And You pack everyone into these countries where there's winter in Europe and America, by the way, less growing season. And, how is it going to work? I'd say pack them all into the warm countries, not the cold countries. If you're going to do anything, well, you're packing them into these very small areas of the world. Doesn't make sense. It sounds like everybody's going to suffer. There's something wrong going on out there. And what did we fight the world wars for? What was the point? What was the point of getting rid of Hitler when he didn't really go away, did he? And we think, because we just love socialism now, we're embracing fascism. We're embracing the world that we thought we destroyed so we could have freedom and individualism, and we can practice our faith and be a full, unique person no matter what our color and religion, all that stuff. We can be unique, and we're not subservient to the state. That's why in America we've got the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. All men are created equal. Humans, man means human. We have these rights, and they're endowed to us by our Creator, which means the state, man. The state cannot take them away because our Creator is God, endowed these rights upon us. Once you take the Creator out and the state comes first, that's where all your rights are given, is the state. The state can take your rights away. If they're endowed by your Creator, your rights can never be taken away. So this is what you're embracing, a system where the state is going to take your rights away, and you're ripping up. Democrats keep saying, oh, it's against the Constitution. They don't even know what the Constitution says, because you're destroying free speech and individualism. And you're getting us to fight, and all these communities are fighting with each other. Everyone is broken up. It's crazy. Instead of under one, go one nation under God. One nation. We pledge allegiance. We pledge allegiance not to the state. Pledge allegiance to the country, so we will stand behind each other. And if someone's going to take our freedom away, we'll fight for each other. We will fight for the children of our future. The future of these countries are going to be free. Everyone is going to be free, and we will stand behind each other. That's what it means. That's what it means. And unfortunately, on this Memorial Day, this is when I'm filming this, the thought that the Nazis never went away. Instead, they made you accept Nazism. You accepted it wholeheartedly, and you think it's the glamorous socialism that's going to take care of you. But Nazism is socialism, which is communism. I'll leave a link to Sargon of Akkad's video. He's interviewing a man on the street. He's asking him questions. You'll pick up bits and pieces, and from there, maybe you'll investigate the EU a little further. God bless all those soldiers that died to keep us free. Let their sacrifice not be for nothing. Let's save our world. Let's keep each other free and at peace. Good night.